I bet David Lynch read that book at least 3 times. Hello, welcome back to my channel. A few weeks into a new year, I think everyone is looking for new inspirations or new solutions. Maybe you want to read more books, or maybe you just want to pick up a few things to read. And I get that. So today we'll be talking about 4 books that you can read in one day. Maybe in one afternoon if you read fast enough. They're light, they are easy to grab and put in your pocket or purse. They were all less than 200 pages. But they are great stories, and I do hope they can bring some sort of inspirations. Holding a break is fun in a different way. Sometimes the satisfaction of, I read a book today, is all it takes to keep on reading. At least for me, that was the case. Also, not that anyone needs to care, but I picked the books for this video last Monday, and I went to do my nails on Tuesday. And it turns out that my nails and the books are exactly the same color pattern. Also, it's the first time I have ever had green cat eye nails. Not that you need to know, I just want to overshare. So in the 4 books, there are 2 full-length stories, 1 short story collection, and a non-fiction about literature. As we always do, we will start from the novels. They actually, it went really well with my nails. These 2 are, I have to say, psycho, but in a good way. They're crazy. If you can consume drugs while reading, it must be what it feels like reading these 2. First, we have the Futurological Congress by Polish author Stanisław. The story is about a scientist named Tichy who was visiting the 8th World Futurological Congress that held in a Hilton hotel in Costa Rica. The book imagined a utopian near future where scientists all over the world are gathering to discuss the world's overpopulation crisis and how to deal with it. So the main character, Tichy, was drugged, as everyone else in the conference, by the government via LSD in tap water. He later found out that the government bombed the hotel after everyone was drugged. So Tichy had to run for his life among robot policemen and real human beings. I have no idea why, but I pictured Keanu Reeves being the main character in the story the whole time. The book is definitely a wild ride. We'll start from the plot, okay? It was written in 1971, but it already pictured in details how medicine can affect human beings, how everyone is willing to take a happy drug to stay cheerful their whole life. The world was becoming an icy place that would soon be impossible to live in because of extreme weather. And it blends reality with his delusion, Tichy's delusion, at the end of the story. Tichy began to have difficulty telling which is which. Was he feeling something real? Was it fake? Was it drug? Was it the reality? And as the book described, the undoctored, unadulterated, uncensored truth became harder and harder to tell the difference as Tichy kept on running. One of the characters asked him, "Can you take it, the undoctored, uncensored truth? And what price are you willing to pay for it?" What's more about this book is it imagined a future that are ridiculously and scarily similar to ours, where extreme weather happens all the time. People are having trouble processing what is real and what is fake, and people are dealing with their own emotions in a very negative way. The book pictured a particular kind of world order where human beings are profoundly swayed by technology and technology only. So in that world, we as human beings are completely controlled and owned by technology. Come to think, what Lime wrote in almost all his work is a discussion of to what extent can we let technology change us? The whole story gave me an impression that nothing is real, nothing happened in the book is real, that you have to keep questioning everything and everywhere that you had been, and finally, you have to have the gut to voice your opinion and your doubt that you don't agree with the world, you don't agree with people's fake satisfaction that induced by medicine, that you was to escape the false impression created by the society that owned by technology. That's what I like about this book. It's chaotic. It's even loud. How can a page have sound? I never realized that until I read this book. If words have a sound, you can picture it in your head. it's a mess. But whatever it was buried deep down beneath, it was something that worth to be found. And I think that's why it was such a wonderful imagination of the future. Next, we have, I can't even say that I recommend this book. I have heard a lot about this book before I read it. First, there was an urban myth that Steve Jobs named iPhone after a name from this book, which I googled it, but it didn't turn out to be the absolute truth. Then we have a famous song from Harry Styles that may or may not came from this story. I think he said in Twitter that it did came from the story. I read this to kill a very boring afternoon. It was a quick read because have you ever take a roller coaster? You know how everything happens so fast and you can do nothing but to witness the world trembling? That's my genuine, complicated feeling about this book. A car accident, a roller coaster that happened way too fast and way too hard. The book's name is In Watermelon Sugar by Richard Brautigan. I don't know how to describe the plot of this book. Let's just say that I bet David Lynch read this book and loved the story. If you like Mulholland Drive or The Blue Velvet, go read it. It tells a story in a community called iDeath. Now you see where allegedly iPhone's name came from. Everything there is made from watermelon sugar and trout oil. There was also a factory called Forgotten Works. The main character doesn't have a name. His parents were eaten by tigers, but as the tigers were eating his parents, they stopped to chat with him and teach him math. One day, another main character called Im Boyle took all his followers back to iDeath, and the roller coaster started from there. I believe literature critics or psychologists will have their thoughts on what each element means in the story. What is iDeath? What is watermelon sugar? Is it an Eden in the new world? Is it nature? Is it a utopian world? I am not an expert, so I won't be doing that. My first genuine reaction of this book is, this is not a comfortable read. It's weird, it's hallucinating, it's bloody, but it's also naive, innocent, quiet, and delicately put. Brautigan wrote about the nameless main character taking walks during the night a few times. The community was simple and everything was in order. It felt like Mulholland Drive, a weird bad dream that you cannot wake up or run away from. That some plots make sense, the others would wake you up in the middle of the night. What's more about this book, and we are not talking about a content analysis here, but a world that Brautigan took us to. You felt fundamentally sad about him, about this book, even before I read about how his ending was, because you realize how talented he was, how much creativity and nuance that he put in this world. And you knew that that type of talents, that level of talents, couldn't have survived the reality. No one can write this book and have a happily ever after. That his talents would eventually eat him alive. He created this beautiful Neverland that no one could understand. We could drop by, we could be a tourist, we could open the book and go to visit. But there is nothing we can do to help with the threat of death living with the author. To put it in a poetic way, maybe his talents doesn't belong to this world. That type of world building, imagination, and philosophical thinking, it's probably made him the greatest writer in America's history, one of, but it was also probably what killed him. Again, this is not a comfortable read, and I'll treat it with caution. The third book I have is a Chekov short story collection. I didn't find the exact same version in English. It says here it's a Sage short story collection. My copy has After the Theater, The Princess, Vologdia, In the Coach House, Neighbors, an anonymous story, and a dreary story. I know there are a lot of versions of Chekov's short stories, and I believe the best way to start reading his work is from something light. Maybe Uncle Vanya as well. This is my first Chekov story collection. I built my preference of short stories from here because first, comparing to a 500 pages work, you can put it down any second and go do your thing. The best part about Chekov's story is, in just a few pages, he created tension by describing the scene by dialogues, and he viewed the world he created with a godlike accuracy. He knew everyone's fate, and he pulled strings, he manipulated their fate through his pen. Also, he wrote about his society with a satire tone, but you know, deep down in his heart, that he cared and felt for the people in his stories. He had a lighter touch comparing to Dostoevsky or Tolstoy when it comes to themes like family, love, and relationships. A lot of his work is not plot heavy, but he created a literature world with sharp opinions. You know what he stands for. And as a reader in 2025, I found his work still relevant, or should I say even more relevant when it comes to the burden of life, different social classes, and bureaucracy. The first story, After the Theater, only has 2 pages, but it writes about how a woman's thought towards her lovers change. And he wrote in such a great details that you know that this is not a character. Someone somewhere in the room must be going through something like this. Last we have The Naive and Sentimental Novelist by Orhan Pamuk. I will be lying if I say this is an easy read, because it's most certainly not. So I came across this book when I just started to write my novel. And frankly, till today, I still don't understand all the things that's said here, but it's still a great book. This is a summary of all 6 lectures that Pamuk did in Harvard, also known as the Norton Lectures. Through these 6 lectures, he discussed novel as an art form, the function of a novelist, how you should read a novel and why you should read novels. So a broad theme with one keyword, novel. I think anyone who learned from James Wood's How Fiction Works will learn tremendously also from this book. He talked about how various authors view their own work. So Proust thinks all his works are paintings, but Henry James thought novels are truth told from different people's eyes. And Borges thought literature is contributing to our thoughts in real life. Even if you're not interested in writing or literature, it's still very interesting to learn about a comparison between all the great writers and how they view their world and our world. Or just a discussion of how small details in a great book matter. For example, why did Tolstoy write about Anna Karenina reading a novel on her way back to St. Petersburg in a train? If you want to know the answer, you should go read the book because it was a great answer. He also asked some very interesting questions. Was the author describing or telling? The author wrote one sentence, and from whose angle was the sentence or the opinions from? In the pocket size, this book is only about 170 pages. You can get a whole new angle of reading novels and some very interesting insights about how to build a literature world. And for that reason, I think it's a great book. I recommend it. It's not easy to read, but you should read it. That's all for today's video. Hope you like it. And it would be great if you are considering reading any of the books that we just talked about. Next video will be a surprise, mainly for myself. But still, I think you should stay tuned, okay? See you next time.